Hello there, welcome back to Marketing Matters, the show that encourages you to take a deeper look into your marketing. I'm joined as ever by Ash Hallam. How are we, mate? You all right?
I'm all right, mate. Thank you.
Good
How are you?
stuff. Yeah, not too bad, thank you. Ash, today we were going to talk about traditional marketing. Now, we're in a world where, as your favourite phrase, a digitally driven world.
Digitally driven world, correct.
Yeah.
People that have watched a few episodes before.
It's a little Easter egg for them, isn't it?
Yeah, a little bit, yeah.
But in that sort of world where, we're going at 100 miles an hour forward, social media is everywhere, AI is coming in and having its say, traditional marketing still exists. So first of all, give us an overview of what traditional marketing is really in comparison to what else we see in this day and age.
Yeah, I think marketing itself has taken a massive step forward in the last 5 years really, but last 15, 20 years or so. So traditional marketing ultimately is things such as billboards that you see, radio ads, newspaper ads, that sort of stuff, print materials that might be, flyers that people hand out, stuff like that. They're all traditional marketing, which effectively really is what people used to do and only do. Because back then,
it's what was available.
Yeah, maybe sort of 20, 25 years ago, there was no social media, and especially on a scale that it is now.
What a world that was. You ever wish you could just go back for a day just to see what it's like?
Yeah. Playing out with your
friends.
You
had an inkling into it, didn't we? We digressed slightly, but the Masters was on recently, and no mobile phones. I didn't know that.
Yeah, they don't do mobile phones there. You're allowed them until the golf is actually on.
Right.
When the rounds start, you're not allowed them.
Because where I noticed it was when they did the scoreboard update.
Yeah.
I thought that was amazing.
Yeah, it's so traditional. The Masters is such a traditional tournament. It's brilliant. It is brilliant. It's part of what makes it so good. But
I loved that.
Yeah,
I thought it was great. But anyway,
it's so good. But yeah, so it's that those sort of methods that aren't the modern day technology. Really, your social medias and maybe even like email newsletters and stuff that people send out. They're your sort of modern sort of methods. And I say your billboards, radio ads, stuff like that. They're all sort of traditional.
Is there still a place for that in today's world? Because everybody's running 100 miles an hour forwards and learning what TikTok's all about, and getting user-generated content, which is great. But is there still a place in our marketing strategy for your traditional methods of like your radio ads, bit of small television marketing, advert in a local paper?
It's a question that we have been posed before, and ultimately the answer is yes, there is. It's not as sort of relevant and as sort of important as it once was.
It's not as critical.
It's not, because ultimately things like social media are effectively free. Now you can there's a whole conversation about is it really free to get yourself out there and to grow, all that sort of stuff. But effectively it's free. You can post on social media, you can set up an account, post for free. But traditional marketing method, there's definitely still a place. We as a business do a lot of print for clients, and we've seen, I would say, in the past sort of few years, and over probably the course of 5 years, the difference in the amount of print that we do, but also in the quality of print that we do.
It's taken a real leap forward into good quality print, hasn't it?
Yeah, and I think, obviously, things like print, you can look at and say, right, there was such an emphasis on it, as I say, 5 years ago. Things like COVID has happened and has changed things quite drastically, I think, in the marketing world. Taken us a lot more people have just jumped online. There was a lot of people online anyway, but a lot more people have jumped online.
It's become more vital. It before COVID, it was a bit like the kind of forward-thinking ones were on it, but after COVID, it was like, you have to be here. If you're not here, then you're struggling.
Yeah. So I think it's deteriorated. I say deteriorated, but it's had prints then, and traditional marketing in general has had to take a bit of a step back. I think that's probably the main thing. It's taking a step back, but it's still very much relevant. For print specifically, we've seen an increase in not necessarily the amount of print that people do, but the amount of care and consideration and quality that people want to print. We've seen a lot of increase in foil finishes, so gold foil, silver foil, stuff like that, that have a real sort of impact when people see it.
I think that's the key word, isn't it?
That sort of thing. That's what people want from print. They want to be wowed. It's not just, I'm going to get some stuff printed. I'm going to get some, I'm going to drop some bits off at local businesses. I'll just print them off in the printer in the office. Well, that doesn't cut it anymore.
You're right. It's important to keep aspects of traditional marketing in play alongside the evolution of more and more things where you can, be a bit more targeted with stuff if you're talking like on targeted ads and things. But, in terms of building your reputation and your trust, still being present in these more traditional methods, I think is a really good way around it.
It's certainly, I say, it's not dead. It's not dead.
No, absolutely not.
It's not completely irrelevant now. It's still very much relevant.
Well, how often?
A step back.
How much better does it feel? Say that you're, I don't know, looking to get a new kitchen, right? And you go to a showroom or something like that. And if they say to you, you can see everything on our website, you can. And, that's perfectly fine. You can swipe through your website and look at different projects and, build your kitchen essentially. But how much nicer is it to walk away with a lovely brochure, really nicely finished, maybe a soft touch on it, a little bit of foil, spot UV, and to flick through it? Because it brings the emotions back to, when we used to sit and flick through Argos catalogues and all that. You remember them?
Oh, God, yeah. I'd write my Christmas list from my Argos catalogue and literally go, I want that. Let me just write that down.
Argos was so forward thinking, when you look back at it, when like you used to go in and do your own stock check.
Yeah.
What's that about?
They were ahead of the times.
They were so ahead of the times.
Ahead of the times.
But still fell away.
Yeah.
But anyway, no. But that everyone loved doing that, and I think there's something about it, especially when you're selling a higher value item, being able to take something and really look through it, a really nice folder with all the information, something tangible. People love tangible stuff.
Yeah, and that's, I say, thinking about like the Argos catalogue, great as it was, but you wouldn't necessarily get that nowadays because you need something a bit quicker, because ultimately, as humans, we are now lazy.
Well, there is a lot less demand for it, and we are lazy
because
if we're browsing for stuff and finding stuff. I think online's a good way to go, but I think whereas perhaps in your traditional methods that you would mass produce these leaflets, brochures, folders, all these other things, and hammer people with them, I think your traditional methods should, in this day and age, come after you get the people through the door, if that makes sense. When you talk about print, I know we can talk about like radio advertising and billboards and other things like that as well. But when you talk about specifically print and brochures and things, I think it's a great thing to give someone to take away with them.
Yeah, and if it's something that, as I say, we've seen the rise in sort of a real high quality level of print.
Yeah.
If someone's taking something away and it might have a certain lamination on it, or say it's got some foil on it, the finish, and then obviously if it's designed properly, nicely, then it does make that impact. And that's the rise that we've seen, because you say before it was just, right, we're going to mass produce, we're just going to get 5,000 of these done, and what we're going to do is just go around and just hand them out to literally anyone we can.
Yeah, door drops and things like that. Yeah,
just anyone. We're going to chuck them through doors, and it's like, right, well, we've put them through 1,000 doors, brill, job done. That doesn't work anymore, because most of the stuff, think about nowadays, I would say that 95% of the stuff that comes through my door, I don't look at, and I'm not inclined to buy from that anyway.
It's our buying habits, isn't it? I mean, if you go back to a time before social media, before, I'll say before the internet, but it's going back a long way.
Yeah.
But you found products and services through door drops, leaflets, newspaper ads, all that sort of thing. That's how you found stuff. But our buying habits and browsing habits have changed in such a way that we find things online now that maybe that's your kind of leaflet drops aren't going to work as much as they perhaps once
It is always going to depend business to business. I think that's ultimately a big factor. You talk about other traditional methods like radio ads, newspaper ads, stuff like that. Billboards.
Still a place for that.
There's a massive place for that because they're still a thing. They're still a thing. It's not like they've not dropped off the face of the earth. They're not no longer. It's not like you never see a billboard.
Yeah.
It's just people think, well, I'm trying to target. You might be, people that do things for car stuff. I'm not not an expert in cars, but car stuff. So there's.
I can tell you're not an expert in cars by saying car stuff.
Yeah. That thing that has 4 wheels, but sometimes they don't have. I don't know.
I get in it, I push a few buttons, and I get to where I want to go. It's amazing.
It's amazing. It's
the future.
It's honestly,
the future,
it's unbelievable. But car stuff, they might, they might advertise on billboards down motorways because that's
absolutely
that's where their target audience effectively is people that are driving.
Yeah,
and then say you look at radio ads. There's so much to it. It might be, well, which radio station are you targeting? Because there's certain demographic of listeners on different bits. So they're all relevant. They're all still relevant. They're just relevant for certain businesses. But that's the same with social media. We talk about with different channels. Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, LinkedIn, Twitter, X, whatever. They're all there, but you target different ones.
Yeah, and when we talk about billboards, for example, like the cost of them is going to be quite substantial. But you only have to go down to like Piccadilly Circus or look at New York.
Times Square,
and they're everywhere. Billboards are everywhere, and a key bit that I've seen more and more of when I'm driving down in town, like I live in Grantham, and there's actually now there's 2 digital billboards I can think of that you drive past, and so you're able to still use a traditional method, but using a modern day technology of a digital screen. So you can put animations on there. You can put moving image on to grab attention more. And it's not just a print and like what was it like they used to kind of roll it on and things like that. It's not that kind of pasting anymore. No. So yeah, and yes, it is perhaps geared towards a somewhat larger business that has a bit more of a marketing budget. Of course, we're not saying that a startup is going to be able to stick themselves on a billboard, but as you start to grow and find that you do have that sort of budget to play with that, I still think it's really, really valuable.
Well, there's almost an argument to say that this is if you're going to start a small business, this is the best time to try and grow it, because you have free channels such as social media to grow it. Whereas before it was very much, okay, well, you've got to outlay some money to print off some flyers and to get yourself on the radio, stuff
space,
the
radio
exactly
space.
So things like that. But say it's still so they're still really relevant. They've just taken a step back, and then it's just, okay, well, say things like print, it's, well, when you do them right.
Yeah.
Because it's actually important that you do them, but you can't do that scattergun approach where you're just going to go, right, I'm going to print 5,000 and door drop, because it doesn't work. It doesn't work as well nowadays anyway.
Yeah.
You can't say it doesn't work.
It's work. The methods are still relevant. It's just choosing to use them a bit more wisely.
Yeah.
So just talking about things like your radio advertising and things and your billboards. We talked on a recent pod about campaigns and getting your message really nailed down. And I think the radio, I mean, how often do you listen to the radio, hear an advert, and it's jingles with like a catchy jingle with the same message over and over, because that's what radio is. And a billboard, you're driving past it, you don't get to sit there and read it and everything. So, once you've identified your campaign and your hook, they're really good places to put them and have them displayed and have them heard, because it raises that trust. When you see something out there and you think, I saw that on Instagram or I've seen their website. I met them at, God, they must be good.
It does very much easily increases your touch points.
Your credibility goes through the roof, I think, when you step into it. And yes, like I say, not going to say that anyone's wrong for not being able to use that, but as a method, I still think that there's a lot to be gained from it.
Oh yeah, 100%. As I say, it's not dead. It has just taken a step back, but it's still very much relevant, and they should still definitely be avenues that you look to explore. You might rule them out initially, but there should be still.
100%.
If you sat down talking about your marketing strategy, you should at least mention them. Every single one, because they might at that point in time, it might be you're doing a campaign on a specific product or a specific service. You might say, well, actually, doing a radio ad would be really good for this, or doing a billboard would be really good for
localized radio as well, because there's things like Radio Newark around here that a really good radio station, and got a good listenership.
Yeah.
And especially when you're working in local business, you start to hear these people on the radio, and again, credibility. Everything's about credibility. If you can raise that, and you do that through a lot of different ways, but in this scenario here, is getting yourself out there on public facing stuff that just raises your profile that extra little bit.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. So yeah, I think it's still relevant. You just have to
be smart about using it. Be smart about using it. Don't discard it completely when you talk about your strategy. Be smart with it. Think about where your customers are, because obviously everything has to come back to where are your customers hanging out. Are we going to fit for this? And then definitely look into it. Yeah. And get your campaign out on there.
Perfect.
I think that's a great way of doing it.
Yeah, exactly. Definitely.
So that is Marketing Matters, talking about traditional marketing techniques and where they still have a place in today's world. Join us next time, where we will be discussing something different in the world of marketing. And as ever, if there is anyone you can think of that would benefit from listening to me and him have a chat, then please do feel free to share it. Until next time, though, bye for now.